Good morning, everybody. It's been a minute. Yep, you're right, CDN. It's been a minute. It's been pretty busy around here. My normal routine when I'm home has been thrown off. Um, Dealing with some stuff around here. Dispatching has been a little challenging this week. Um, what am I doing here? So I had one of our drivers call me and said, "Hey, man, you haven't gone live in a while. Everything all right?" Checking up on me. That's the kind of friends that you want, right? The kind of people that will check up on you if they don't hear from you after a while. Um, it's man, I need a new chair. This chair kind of sucks. Um, there's a few. Well, let's go back. So there's one of our drivers called me. "Hey, man, you haven't gone live in a while. I enjoy your morning coffee. I enjoy your insight. So that's pretty cool." And I said, "Well, sometimes I don't go live because I got things going on at home or my routine's off or I just flat out don't have something to talk about because you can only talk about rates and lanes and do your numbers for so long so much, right? So I mean, but a couple things have popped up I want to talk about. So if I have a topic at mind, then I will address it. So we'll get some people in here and we'll do some shout outs and then we will get started. That reminds me, write down some timestamps so I can cut this up later if we get into anything important. As you guys see by the title, heat alert and 97 cents a mile. There was a Facebook post. Facebook inspires a lot of my thoughts when it comes to um, the suffering that I'm seeing people are going through when it comes to the spot market. The emotional reaction of seeing 97 cents coming out of Denver. And that's the thing. I was seeing that too. I had to get a truck out of Denver just the other day. And no, I didn't put them in Denver. That was the thing. But anyways, we'll do some shout outs. We'll get to talking about that. And yeah, so getting some people in here. All right, we got Salt Life Cruising. What's up, Mike? How you doing, man? How are you doing? Eddie, what's up? It has been a while. I know. CDN, it's been a minute. Glad to see you live. Nothing witty. Good morning. Good to see you in the house. Scott SRO Logistics. Good morning. Scott's making some moves. He's doing some good things over there at SRO Logistics. Mr. Bill, what's up? Desert Okie Pam. Um, I know what you're going through, but you should have no problem getting out of Dallas where you're at. So, and for a decent rate. Rates coming out of Texas are pretty good right now. Used to be the other way around. Sage, what's up? Morning, guys, from downtown Dallas this time. William Buck Brown, what's up, man? Sage, hey, you have not gone live in a bit. Everything's fine, Sage. Part of it is my wife's on vacation, so my morning routine of getting up at 5, making coffee at 6, and then her going to work at 7. She usually gets up about 6. Um, I'm gonna laugh. I'm laughing at what Ratman just said. I'm getting ahead of myself. Um, and then for a while, her and the youngest were gone. They were gone for 3 days, so my morning routine was off there. I think I did go live Monday. Was it Monday? Yeah, because I tend not to go live on the weekends as much. Of course, we're like 3 weeks into Pale Rider not going live on Fridays, so there's some depression going on. But because Pale Rider's not live so he's completely thrown off my Friday night routine. But no, everything's fine. Been busy. Been dealing with the. That was the other thing. Been dealing with the other house and getting the stuff situated there. So, and frankly, I really haven't had much to talk about. So, morning, Daniel Adami, Sam I am. Good morning, all. Toby. Good morning, Toby. What's up, man? DIY Semi Trucking and More. We're still going to do the book thing. But perhaps maybe this weekend. Jason, what's up? Here in Chicago, trip 1 of 2, picking up trailers. Hopefully you get a load out of there. You should be able to get a good load out of there. Ratman, yes, we will talk about that. it sucks for all the platforms, right? It sucks for all the platforms. Ratman called me, or I called him actually. I needed some info from him, and I go, "Where are you at today?" He's like, "Denver." I'm like, "What's up with you guys in Denver, man? You're like the third truck I know in Denver that's complaining about rates coming out." Here's some free advice: don't go to Denver. But Ratman has no choice because he's hauling his own product. But it's just kind of funny. But I'll tell you guys how to get out of Denver. Grafton, what's up? Good morning. I have your wife, daughter, and minivan. I will pay you $1 million to take them. That's funny. That goes to something to happen. Yeah, we could talk about that. That's funny. Nothing funny. Good morning, Stephen. The docket, Horicon. Excellent. 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 Now, Greg Zimmer, we got him about $1,000 more than what the 30-day was on a particular load out to a particular place that no one wanted to pay to go to. Fran, what's up? All right, so SST, how's it going? So what Big Rig CEO is referring to, and this is one of the things that happened this week. So my son had gone to work, and I get this phone call, and they hang up. It rings again. It's a 417 number. I don't recognize it. And this guy, I answer the phone, and there's this sobbing. I can't. It sounded like a sobbing woman, right, or a girl. And this person was able to fish my name, and maybe he heard my name from my outgoing voice message, but then I ended up saying my name because I thought my son had been in a car accident, right? And this guy said, "Hey, I'm with the county sheriff." Didn't say which county, just said the county sheriff, and then proceeded to tell me that my daughter was in an accident. Well, my oldest daughter, she's not quite driving yet. I mean, she is, but with the help of, she's learning to get her permit, right? She's learning to get her license. But if she's in an accident, well, she ain't going to call me. I mean, the police ain't going to call me unless it's something horrendous. But this was like at 10 o'clock, which I knew that she was at work at 7. So this guy starts getting irate because I'm starting to ask him questions. I'm like, well, what's your badge number? Because he's telling me that she's been in a car accident and that I needed to listen to him and to do exactly what he said in order to remedy the situation. Something of that nature. I'm kind of hazy on this now. And then I'm like, well, what's your badge number? And he gives me this like 8-digit number, which most people, if you don't know, most badge numbers aren't that long. They're like 2, 3, 4, depending on how big the department is. Anyways, he changes his story and he says, well, I'll be honest with you, I'm undercover. and she witnessed a drug transaction, and you got to take care of this. I'm like, what? So, and then the story changed from that he was the drug cartel, and that they had her in a possession, her in their possession, and then you can hear this woman screaming in the background, and that they were going to cut a finger off to to make a point, and I needed to do exactly what they said. And then they proceeded to say we're going to blow her head off. And then when I called their bluff, meanwhile my wife's like kind of like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. And I don't think she was falling for it, but I mean, this dude was being it was kind of eerie, right? It's kind of eerie. So he gets to the point where it's like, all right, if you don't do what I say, I'm blowing her head off. I'm like, oh, no, I don't think you are who you say you are. Um, and he's all right, man, you're gonna find her head on Highway 13. Da, da. Meanwhile, my wife's texting my daughter, and um, he hangs up. Right, I blocked the number immediately. So I call my oldest, like, hey, you okay? Yeah, why? What's up? She's at work. She was freaking out now because I normally don't call her at work. So I told her, I said, well, drug cartel just kidnapped you and blew your head off. So, just let you know. And she's just like, what? But, the true drug cartel, they're not going to give you warnings. They're not going to threaten you on the phone. We never got to the Amazon gift card stage of the scam, but that's what it was. I called Greene County, told them what was up. They said I had to call Springfield Police. Called Springfield Police. They didn't answer. So there it is. But yeah, that was how my week started. So it kind of put me in a funk for the rest of the day because I don't know. So just be aware. Usually I don't answer strange phone numbers, but unless they're from Colorado, Arizona, or Springfield, 417. So yeah, there's that. So I believe that's what James is talking about there. Tennessee Trucking, good morning. Jose, good morning. Stupid people are getting desperate, right? My mom fell for something like that years ago. My son was 15, and I get a call from her at like 5 in the morning. And she goes, Steve, where's your son? Mom, he's in his room. Are you okay? Well, are you sure? Like, yeah, Mom, I'm pretty sure. And she goes, well, these two people called, a guy and a girl, and they told me that he was under arrest. He was in in Greene County jail, and they were, they needed Amazon cards to bail him out. He was caught shoplifting. I said, Mom, he's in his room. So I knock on the door. My son wakes up. Yeah, Dad, what's up? I'm like, say hello to your grandmother. Hi, Grandma. Yeah, I'm here. I'm fine. So gives me back the phone. That was the first of many scams that almost got my mom. So I mean, the scammers are out there. In fact, I lost quite a bit of work last year because of the things that we had to deal with my mom. Because the scammers are relentless, right? They're a little bit more elaborate than that now, but obviously, drug cartel. That's a new one. That's a new one. And in the lady at Greene County, she was like, yeah, that's one of the common scams now. Is it's either car warranty or like a hostage situation. So, what's up, Pale Rider? I was just explaining, Pale Rider, that we're 3 weeks into this depression that you haven't gone live on a Friday, so my whole Friday night routine is just completely destroyed. Our dollar store shelves at home really empty. Cashier told me trucks show up half orders. Yeah, I think a lot of retailers are being a little bit gun shy on ordering stuff because they don't know. I saw something completely stupid on Robin Hood Snacks. You know, I get their email once a week, and it said that I don't know if I want to see if I can bring up that email real quick. There were several things that put me in a bad mood, and that was one of them. See if I can find this. Yep, it's here. They were talking about inflation, right? Gray area. We're starting to see more layoffs as the Fed tightens its belt and consumer spending surprisingly fell in May as inflation strained savings. Surprisingly fell. It's amazing how educated people don't understand basic things, right? The last time gas went through the roof, back in 2008, 2009, people stopped buying stuff. They stopped going out. They stopped replacing their TVs once a year. They stopped replacing their lawnmowers once a year. They stopped going out to eat because the extra $50 that they had was going towards their gasoline. It's part of inflation. Fuel prices help drive inflation. And so when they said surprisingly fell, like, how can you not see that? How can you not see that coming? It just blows my mind. Blows my mind. What's sad is how many people buying the scam so easy nowadays. Fireworks sales are going to be very low this year. That's true. And fireworks used to have a huge profit margin, and I know that from personal experience. When I used to do firework deliveries, I mean, these people would literally work just 1 month of the year, and that was their money for the year with their fireworks sales. Um, but I delivered down to an Indian reservation there in North Dakota or South Dakota. It was South Dakota, and the guy bought a whole truckload and was like, "Yeah, man, this will pay all my bills and then some for the rest of the year. This is all I do." And more than one big fireworks stand owner told me the same thing. If they don't use that scam effort to get a job or start a business, they would find that they don't do all that scam foolishness. Well, if it wasn't profitable, they wouldn't do it, right, Fran? A lot of people had to stop working once they couldn't afford the commute. Then you really can't afford extras. I always get contacted by the Nigerian prince, never the Nigerian princess, right? Isn't that the way? So, Henry, what's up? So, um, so yeah, inflation's here. That's kind of got me in a foul mood because, the family took me out for Father's Day, late Father's Day, because my wife abandoned me on Father's Day. Her and the youngest were in Kansas City having fun. I was abandoned. I'm just kidding, wife. Um, so we went out Tuesday and paid more money for the meal, and then we went to a record store, and everything I wanted was like $50. I'm like, yep, screw that. I hate record collectors, by the way. putting prices on things that really don't need those kind of prices. So, but anyways, that's the so yeah, it kind of got me in a funk this week. So that's why I haven't been live. Fran, that's what I think too. They put so much energy and cleverness into that evil. Imagine if they put it to good use. So let's talk about the 97 cents a mile posted rates on coming out of Denver. And the people that get on Facebook and explain how that's wrong. And I saw this a couple of times. There was one person that posted a JB Hunt posted rate. Now, those of you who aren't familiar, and Pam, pay attention to this. Those of you who aren't familiar with JB Hunt, on their app, they start extremely low. In other words, if let's say your 15 or 30-day average is $5,000 on a big load, they're going to start off at 2,500. You can usually get them way above that posted rate. Are they above the 30-day? It just depends on how desperate they are to move it. And you got to recognize the fact that a lot of their freight is contracted. So right now, contract rates are higher than spot rates. So you should be getting some good rates out of JB Hunt. Should. But there's that word that we love so much. I've literally doubled the numbers on JB Hunt's app and gotten the load. That's actually happened. So when people see the posted rates, that's a psychological trick to make you, if you're going to ask for high money, they don't even want you calling. And they're looking for the desperate, uneducated, uninformed driver that's frustrated and is willing to take anything to get out, or a dispatcher from a company that their job is to only keep the truck moving regardless of what the profit margin is on the load, because they're looking for the bigger numbers. So don't fall for that trick, number one. So posting posted rates on the internet does no good. Now, have I done that? Yes. One time Uber had a load for 97 cents. I posted that. Actually, there was one time they had it at $0. So it was probably a computer mistake. And I posted that. But, and of course, what that does is that makes you emotional. Like, how they expect us to make money at 97 cents a mile, blah, 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 blah. Again, most brokers are not concerned about your profit margin. Okay. Their job is to move the load at a particular price that they're paid to move it for. And they have to have a profit margin. Okay. Now, if they post it for 97 cents, call them out on their bluff. You make that phone call and you ask for the amount that you would like to have. And if you're a good salesperson and the load has to be moved, those two things are important. It's not one or the other. Two things. You have to sell yourself and you have to, and that load has to move. Those two elements have to be there for you to get above the average. Now, mind you, the average out of Denver right now, the 15-day is $1.56 a mile. So right away, if you're booking your own freight, or you got some guy like me booking the freight for you, and you don't have to go to a dead area, before you go to an area, look at the rates coming out of that area. Because if you make good money going in, there's probably a reason. It's either because it's multi-stop, or it's got an extra day on the transit time, or you're going to take a huge hit coming out, or there's nothing coming out, like New Mexico. New Mexico, you're looking at least 150-mile deadhead, 200-mile deadhead to get out. So that kills the profit that you made going into New Mexico. And they know that. They know that. The smart ones know that. The smart ones know that you're willing to take that hit to come out. And if you deadhead, you take even a bigger hit, right? So that is a psychological trick to get the lowest price. And if no one, be like, well, if no one ever takes that load, it'll sit. Well, that's true, but someone is going to take that load simply because they either got to keep moving or they're just they know how to manage their finances. And if you got look, if you get 4 going in and 2 coming out, that's 3 all miles. I mean, that was the math that when I had to get John to Colorado. That's what we got. Um, and yes, I got $2 a mile out of the Colorado area. You know why? Because I was able to talk to the person, convince them, and actually got them up a little bit more when the weight wasn't what they said it was going to be. And going into Colorado, I got $1,000 above the 30-day because it was 2 stops, 2 easy stops. It was a light load, so I got 2 home runs in a row on that deal. And there are times when you take the posted rate, and there are times when you need to ask for more. And the more desperate you become, or the more emotional you are, that's what dictates how you run your business. If you get frustrated and say, screw this, I'm out, I'm deadheading, well, now you've got frustration and empty miles. If you go in with the full intention of deadheading out, then you should know your all mile rate per mile. So if you make such a good rate that if, like, for example, here's a strategy. So let's say you do a load from St. Louis to Denver, and you're not even gonna you're looking at Denver, you're like, I'm not even gonna take anything out of there. Screw Denver. Let that stuff sit. I'm gonna deadhead to Kansas City. So now you got to take the miles from St. Louis to Denver, Denver to Kansas City, and put the all miles in there and see what your rate per mile is. I guarantee you that it's not as killer of a rate as you think it is. And if it is, great. If it isn't, then you might want to try to find at least something. But for the most part, you have to add that into the picture. It's part of the bigger picture. And then the loss of day. So if you made $4,000 going into Denver, and it takes 3 days, that's a decent rate for dry van. But if it takes 6 days, then not so much. So there's that aspect that you have to look at. All right, Scott. That's true, Jose. When a broker has a cheap load reply, how am I supposed to do that? Yeah, I mean, call them out. And majority of their reply is going to be, well, I move it all the time for this much. Okay, well, but it's still on the board. We got dedicated carriers to do this. Well, then where are they? Call them out on their bluff. And if they go, well, that's all I got in it, then you can either be cruel and say, well, maybe you need to be a better negotiator on your end, or well, maybe ask the customer for more money because I'm willing to move it at X amount. Part of it is how you word it. Instead of asking for more, tell the broker that you run that lane every week and you charge 1, 2, 3, 4 for that lane. Don't be greedy. Yes, that is absolutely true. See, Big Rig knows the game. Use the same thing. Use the same words. Well, I do loads out of Denver all the time for X amount, and as long as it's not something stupid like $3 a mile, then you can probably get away with that. If you're not willing to learn the market, hire a dispatch service like you offer. Having a professional dispatcher like yourself more than pays for itself. Peace of mind. You can focus on driving. That's exactly what I'm here for. Is that I'm the guy that knows the market. I'm the guy that knows how to get out of a market. And I'm also the guy that has to make those 15 phone calls and tell the brokers what they need to hear so you don't have to. I mean, I've literally had one of our drivers call me and they're like, look, dude, I'm getting mad. I need you to book me something today. And I asked him what he was looking for. And I said, yep, I'll get you something. Within 5 minutes, I had something for him. And then another driver said, hey, I think we're going to start using you. I'm like, all right, cool. Where are you going to be at? I'm going to be in Denver. I'm like, so it's like, but we dealt with it. And then John, I had to get him to Colorado because of his carrier needing to pass off something to him. And so, we go in there and and the Colorado carrier, what he did? He said, Steve, ask for this and this because he knew the terrain, he knew the area, he knew what they were willing to pay, and sure enough, I got $1,000 over the 30-day on that, and it was a light load too. 2 stops though. It seems that truckers that get in the broker dispatching always wind up back in the truck. Makes me wonder if that makes any money. Fran, the only way that I'm making this work is that I have other streams of income, right? And my bills are low. If I had to feed my family like this, I couldn't do it. And if everybody's hurting, that's the thing. If everybody's hurting, no one wants to pay the extra percentage for the dispatch. And our dispatch fee is fairly low compared to others. So that's why I don't sell this beautiful piece of machinery that's behind me. Because, at some point I'll probably be in it. And then I'm trying to get things lined up and straightened out to where I can dispatch from the road as well. So too bad we can't bullshit regulations like the rates, right? CNN, except not all shippers pay equal for outbound freight in the same city. That is absolutely true, and that's the thing. If you're a mattress store in Denver, you're probably got contracts with the local carriers, and if it has to go to a broker, you're probably not paying much because you know what your market rate is. Yeah, I don't want anybody to get any false impression that I'm getting rich over here. So, freight dispatch, like the business, takes time to get established, become profitable. Absolutely. And I know a gal right here in Springfield that's dispatching 10 trucks, has a brokerage and a referral service. So, that there's and her and I have been talking quite a bit. And it takes time to build anything. It's a 5-year plan, right? It's a 5-year plan, and I know what my numbers need to be to get off the road completely, and I'm not. So we're not there yet. Hi, Steve. To show complexity of the trucking industry, balancing getting freight and hire drivers, have a look. National Carriers, Elite Fleet, Springfield, Missouri website. They increased rate per mile. We can take a look at that. You want me to do that now? Tell you what, let's put a link here. I want your thoughts. And look, before I put this out, before I put the link out, here's something to ponder, okay? I've made the joke, you know how you deal with Denver? Don't go there, right? But that's impractical, right? Sometimes you got to go, right? Hell, even I've been to Denver a few times. And sometimes you don't have a choice. Sometimes that might be the only load you can get going to Denver, or your dispatcher sent you to Denver and then he's like, oh, you find your way out, or you've got a direct customer that goes into Denver and you got to find your way out. So knowing how to deal with negative situations like that, I think, is key. And I can definitely help with that, you know. And that's the great thing about our dispatch service is that, if you want to use me once, cool. If you want to use me all week, cool. If you want to use me all one, cool. If you want to use me for a day and then flip me off, yeah, cool too. That hasn't happened, but it could happen and probably will happen at some point. If you don't want to take the time to understand the market, give me a call. If you're having trouble developing a strategy in a triangle, give me a call. If you just tired of making the phone calls, give me a call, and you'll see how I do it. So, well, that's a little harsh, but okay. Degrees of gravel. That's funny. I've never heard that. So I'll put the link in if you want to come in. Um, come on in. If you don't, then we saw about how hot it is. That was the other title, heat index. I've been watching the Weather Nation every morning, and about all they're talking about is all these heat alerts, some thunderstorms, but mostly heat alerts. Oh, and a couple of hurricanes. It's hurricane season, so. But I want to know different strategies of how you guys deal with dead markets, because eventually you'll end up in one, and sometimes it's by accident. Sometimes you're like, oh, here's a logo in the Columbus. You get to Columbus, Ohio, and like all of a sudden it's a dead zone. You're like, what the hell? What the hell just happened? So there's, it's all part of the game, and self dispatch definitely has its tricks. And for example, I'll give you an example. So we have a driver here at Like Trucking that primarily does Phoenix to Denver. So the second time I had to look for a truck out of Denver, I called him up. I said, how are you getting out of Denver? What are you doing? What strategies are you using? All right, CDN. And he told me, he gave me his contacts. He gave me his broker contacts. And, and very lovely lady. I called her up. It was like, hey, this is Steve from Like Trucking. And I want to be on your email list. And she told me that she has this freight that comes out Monday and Tuesday and sometimes Thursday, but she didn't have one at that particular time. And something like that, you take a little bit, you it's like when I dispatch Like Trucking guys, I have a little bit of an edge because number one, our authority's, going on 6 years old. And I can give them the same Sarah tracking link that allows them to see the truck in real time. And brokers love that. They're like, oh wow. And it's the truck, not your phone. If you've ever done a load over the weekend and the tracking device is on your phone and you're out in the lake and the broker calls like, hey, is everything okay? Because it's showing that you're in the lake. It's like, yeah, I'm fishing. Leave me alone. I've actually had a couple of friends that happened to. But the link goes to the truck. You can see what the truck's doing. You can see where the truck is parked. And you can put an expiration date and time on that link so they can't do that unending. And I've gotten extra money for that leverage. In communication, if you do a load for a broker for the first time and you don't do the check calls and you don't do the emails and the driver's late, that could be a problem. Whereas, if we're doing check calls at every turn and loads delivered on time, they remember that. So there's quite a few. I mean, you're a salesperson. It's what you are. I'm a salesperson. My job is, for example, the load that Greg's on now is a load that we've done many, many times, and she was having a little bit of trouble coming up on the money this time. They're like, look, man, we have a great history with you on these. And we have this edge and this edge on it versus your other carriers. So, and she I had to give a little bit. I was being kind of greedy, but she gave a little, and we got them a decent rate. So going out to California, mind you. Now, newsflash: California rates should be getting better coming out because the load ratios have changed. Let's do that. Let's take a look at the load ratios. For van for today. Let's look at good old Colorado. 742 in and 282 out. Low volume and load ratios are bad. So yeah, don't go to Denver. Don't go to Colorado in general if you can help it. California, 2179 going in and 3778 coming out. So they've stopped paying to go into California. For a while, you can make good money going into California because you weren't going to get it coming out. Now it's the other way around. Now they're kind of equaling out there a little bit. Let's see, Missouri 672 in, 678 out, even Steven. That's what I like about Missouri. Let's see, although those numbers are kind of low volume wise. Pennsylvania 1560 going in and 1296 coming out. Pennsylvania has flopped. For a while, it was loads coming out of PA were really there was a lot more coming out. Texas 2932 going in and 4328 coming out. Virginia surprising 586 in, 1074 out. New Mexico 157 in, 105 out. Don't go to New Mexico unless you want to haul pumpkins or peanuts coming out. Ohio, this bothers me. Ohio 1670 in, 912 out. Illinois, historically a good state. 1583 in, 1180 out. That's not too bad, but still, it's usually the other way around. So knowing your markets and your load ratio tool is probably your best tool. So just putting that out there. All right. Good morning, CDN. How are you?
Oh, it's been a very hectic week and trying week, I should say.
You too?
Well, I'm on the opposite side of the spectrum. Hopefully my audio is okay.
Yeah, audio's fine.
My thing is, I had several loads this week. They were somewhat complex that, unfortunately, I had no choice but to put on the load boards. And when I post them and I'm getting calls, instead of, my thing is, do you still have this load? And then I'll say, yes, I do. The next question is, how much you paying? I said, so you sure you want me to just tell you the price? Yeah. Okay, then I'll tell you all the details, and then you're going to want more money, and then I'll say I can't pay you because that's what you asked. I said, why are you asking money? How much you're paying should be the last thing of the thing. Because whatever I say, I'll pay you $5,000. You're like, oh, that sounds great, but it picks up on Monday and it doesn't deliver for 2 weeks. Well, I can't sit on that for 2 weeks, but you didn't ask me those questions. So I spent a ton of time saying to these dispatchers, like, oh, that's some good points.
Let's do a mock phone call. Hey, CN, I see that you got a load posted from Springfield to Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania. Can you give me the details?
Sure. What's your? Let's start with. What's your first name, sir?
My name is Steve. I'm with Like Truck and MC number 014328.
Great to meet you. So this load is a 53 dry van, no reefers, no roll-up doors. It must be 53 high cube, 110-inch height, swing doors, And is that kind of trailer you have?
Yes, I have a plate trailer. It's a 2016 Wabash.
Does your driver have, I need 4 logistic straps or bars to secure
Yes.
the last couple rows? Okay.
Yes, he does.
And so this is the pickup is at a dock. You can pick up, as long as it picks up before you arrive, before 3 o'clock, you're fine. But the delivery is, you let me know the driver's logbook hours. I have to make the appointment 24 hours in advance.
Okay. It's about 1,000 miles. So, what's the latest he can deliver?
Well, the receiver's hours are typically 8 to 3:30, but we have to book the appointment 24 hours ahead, and often the place does get busy. So my suggestion is, if I can get this rate approved, that what we'll do is, as soon as you're loaded, you can let me know his logbook hours, and I can arrange while he's getting loaded. I'll request a delivery appointment based on what he figures he can make it for, and we'll try to get ahead of the game that way.
Okay. Also, what's your are you familiar with this customer? What's their unload times usually like?
Oh no, they always unload within under 2 hours. This place has been good.
Okay. What's
Yeah,
your
I've
detention, just in case?
Oh,
What's your
after 2
detention
hours, we
policy
pay
just in
65
case?
an hour. After 2 hours, we pay 65 an hour.
Okay. After 2 hours?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. So what rate are you looking to be around on that one?
For that one there, I would have to pull it up. I'm just gonna, for mock purposes, is 1,000 miles at right now. Give me a second here. Let's say, without even looking at the load board. The numbers match. $3,000.
3,000? Okay. Let's see. I can give you a link for tracking our truck, and we'll probably be on the early end of the delivery on that, depending on how long it takes to pick up. Now, fuel's running about $7 in PA right now,
Okay.
and I know that's not your concern, but I need to have a little bit more, and then I've got about $200 of tolls. What's the weight of the load? Did you tell me?
No, I did not yet, but that's the load is there's going to be a total. I'm just doing the math here. It's going to be 18 skids because they're no, it's 37,500. There's there's 15 skids at 2,800 pounds.
Okay. So I
So
probably need to be at about around 36. Can you do 36 on that?
I don't know if I can get that. Hang on.
I'm familiar with this shipper too. So
Well, so I'll share with you my math. So the way I did this was I took the 1,000 miles
mhm,
and I put 5 miles to the gallon. So you're going to burn about 200 gallons, give or
mhm.
take. At $7 a mile, that's 1,400. So yes, it is approaching the 15, almost 50% of the rate. And then see, I took 1,000 miles and I did 50 miles an hour. So that's 20 hours of drive time, 2 hours loading, 2 hours unloading. So I had 24 hours at $125 an hour to the truck. So it's $3,000 worth. That works out to $3 a mile. And that's kind of where the shipper's generally been. It's a little, I know that the prices are there, but it is a good clean load. They do load well, and I mean, I can talk to them and see if I can squeeze out maybe 32, but 36, I don't think this customer will go for it. They'll sit on it rather than move the load.
Okay. Well, if we can do 33, I can get it off your desk today, and it'll be out of your worries.
Okay, so for at 33, I'm willing to do that and go back to the customer, and I'll explain the fuel situation. But I do have to call and send an email to get that approved, because I am approved at the 3. But I will take a minute here, and I'll get your name and number and your email, and I'll quickly contact my customer and see if we can get you a little extra on this load, and try to get moving for you.
There you go. Yeah, a lot of people have been wanting me to do like how do you talk to brokers?
Well, that's where you put a yellow sticky that make your cut right there.
Yeah. Right there. Yep. So let's write that down. 51:48. We've been at this for 51 minutes already. Jeez. Um. No, I appreciate that, and that's how it's done, people. That's how it's done. And now the caveat to that is that CDN is a professional, right? And there are times when you call a broker and they're not professional. Those are the ones that irritate me. When I can't even have a conversation like that, that's what frustrates me booking freight. And so Rob's done the math, he's done his homework, and he understands the costs, better than most brokers that are trying to move stuff at 97 cents a mile. So, but ask for the information first before you even go into the money. In CDN, what does that tell you when a driver goes directly to the amount of money? Is that they're not paid attention to the details. You could tell them it's a 45,000 pound load of live cats, that takes a month to deliver, and
Well,
that
I think
detail.
it is frustrating for me, and I go through this process. But then I asked them the question. I said, are you, when you're calling, are you calling on behalf of your owner operator, or is this a company driver? And the ones that generally, when they've called and just said, how much are you paying? I think it's because what they try to do is, you know what, before I get into the nitty gritties of all that, why waste my time? They're probably looking at it from the standpoint, I got this owner operator guy that's not going to take cheap freight. So you know what? If the broker gives me a low number that's not even close to where I was hoping to be, click, I'll move on to the next one till I find someone that's like the number they give me is reasonably close to where we're going to get to. Then possibly they ask the questions. But I went through this whole process, and several of them started to say, because I said, you're never going to have the owner operator call me back. But guess what? Finally, one of the carriers, because I had a load, it was delivering into Landers, California. Okay, it's coming out of Canada, and it's going to Landers, California. It's a full truckload, but it delivers to a residential street in Landers, California, 100 miles. So the way I explained it to them is I said, where it's picking up is in a core city, so the trucks are there. Now, the next thing is they just kept saying, oh, okay, how much are you paying? The load is only 10,000 pounds. It's very, very light. But a lot of carriers or drivers get hesitant, because if I told you, Steve, okay, I have this load, but you have to drive down some residential street and park your 50, the same truck that's right behind your screen, you have to park on a street and deliver. Some drivers are okay with this. I had a customer that I did a lot. I had two customers that do a lot of, it's residential job sites. The houses are getting built, and this is construction materials, light construction materials. So a lot of carriers. So I basically, the summary is, on this load for Landers, I built in, because I know there's no loads out of Landers, so I built in the money back to LA. Because I had a guy yesterday says, well, I need this much because I need to get to Vegas. I said, well, that's nice, you need to get to Vegas, but I am including deadhead, but I'm not including the deadhead all the way back to Vegas. I'm including the deadhead back to LA. I'm respecting that. And if I showed you the quote I sent to the customer, I will share it to you so you can see, but I put on to the customer 50% of the quote I'm giving you, because I did the math, right? I looked at the fuel in Seattle, Portland, because it was coming out of Vancouver, BC, going to California, and I did all the math on it, and 50% of that cost was fuel, pure and simple, right? And I know that. So when you take all that into consideration, it is hard for the carriers, right? It truly is hard for the carriers when you're having to pay for all your IFTAs and your load boards, your cell phones, plus your truck note and your trailer, et cetera, your ELD systems you're paying for. Like, you got a lot of monthly expenses. So, I understand that. But at the same token, though, if you're coming into the spot market and you're expecting a certain dollars, but those lanes that you're trying to run don't warrant those dollars, you obviously didn't do the research. And I'm finding that more and more.
Let me address Donnie Luke and Big Rig CO. They're like, while he's sending an email for approval at 3,300, another carrier just called and did it for 3K, and that would most likely happen. There was a point yesterday where I had to call the broker back, like, look, okay, we can do that. So that's where desperation comes in. If I have a lot of options on the table, I will let it get to that email point. and then either CDN or I will make that phone call to get it down to 32, right? Um,
Well, I can share with you. I can tell you that I have a customer yesterday. They always have to get 3 rates. It's a load going. It was going to Illinois from Canada to Illinois. It wasn't a full load, a partial. And I have a truck that's been, working with me on this. I quoted it out, and they said I was the second lowest, and they've given it to the sales rep to make the decision. So if I went back to them with a lower price, maybe I might step in. I'm talking to the carriers, seeing if they're willing to lower the price. But that's the true. I can tell you straight up. A lot of the shippers, regardless, they're not asking me, well, what's the year of the truck? How many years has that driver been working for? What's the year of the trailer? Like, they're not basing it on that. The only thing they're basing it on is price. Unless what will happen with this load is, because this load has been pushed off like twice because of the items getting produced were delayed, and it's picking up next week. And I explained to them, I said, you got to understand, now we're running into next Friday. This is where you got to start to think. Next Friday is Canada Day. It's July the 1st. Monday is your US holiday. So truckers who go across the borders, it's kind of a messed up week, because being on a Monday is not so bad for the US, because you guys will take the whole weekend plus the Monday. My experience has been is when the long weekend, like your 4th of July tends to be, say, on a Thursday or a Friday. Well, typically the day before by noon, it's a dull roar. So like the point is if you're a trucker in the United States needing to get back to Canada, and you're in the States on the afternoon prior to July 4th, well, good luck. You're enjoying the July the 4th in the United States. Because some of the drivers hope that, hey, if I can get loaded the day before, they can run, and get back to Canada, right? So the point is that you have to think about all those factors. And what a lot of carriers do, if you're a trucker, that next week is going to be messed up. You got the Canadian holiday, you got the US holiday. Some of those drivers just say, I'm just going to take that next week off, so now we got less trucks in the marketplace and to cover those loads. So there's those factors in there. But again, this morning I'll be trying to see what I can do. Maybe what will happen with this load to Illinois is it may turn into, because the prices they said are very close. Like sometimes they'll say, oh yeah, Rob, your price was like $500 more than the next person's, right? But sometimes what it may come down to, if the prices are close, I might review to them. I'm going to talk with my carrier that I'm working with and say what they can deliver. And if they say we're going to pick up next week and we can deliver the same week, because if they say that might be an enticement, I might try to sell it. Hey, we're going to get there before the July 4th long weekend, because their crew that could be working there may be impacted and so forth. So you got to find these little tricks how to find ways to secure the loads. But remember, like, I know everyone says they're blaming the brokers, and sometimes the brokers are playing games, no question about it. But I can tell you wholeheartedly that often it is the shippers playing the games. They're pushing the marketplace. They have 2 brokers, and they'll say, well, if you give it to me for this price, and then they'll play games, because if they see that if I quoted them and they like working with me because I communicate better, but another person gave them a cheaper rate, they might come to me and say, if it was this rate where I'm trying to get 3,300, someone came back at 3, the shipper might say, well, we have a truck at 28, hoping that they can save $200 more. You know what I mean? And
right.
so the shippers can play the same game, saying, well, if this guy came in 300 less, maybe Rob will do it for even 200 more. And then if Rob comes back at 3, we'll take the 3 because we'd rather work with him, right? So there's that side of it. That relationship aspect does play, but your relationship does only go. Your relationship builds your enough rapport to get you access to their freight. But so I have some loads where I know my shipper's not shopping around. It's me. It's 100% me. And I know there's some where they're going to shop it around. They're going to go buy. They're going to award the freight based off of transit times, price, or what other specialty requirements are necessary on the loads.
Going back to our mock conversation, with the professionalism that you showed, I probably would have taken the 32, despite what the market was doing, because I knew that you took the time. You weren't just, and you weren't like there are some brokers that are known for, like, oh yeah, we can do it for 33. Oh wait, hold on. Oh, my buddy's got it sold for 31. We can give it to you if you'll match that. They do that right there. And JB Hunt
Well,
practically
well,
does
that's
that
why,
right
like,
now.
when you took that, you took the angle. Well, prices of fuel is high; it's about $7 a gallon.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one, I could have checked that out, and two, did you see what I did? Is I took a second and I did my own math. How much
Mm-hmm.
fuel do I think I'm going to burn? And I went on the low end. I went 5 miles a gallon. I didn't go 6, 7, 8, 9. I
Right.
went 5. Right? To be assuming that it's a heavier, it's 37,500. So, and you might go through some hills. So I'll give you 5 miles to the gallon. At 200 gallons, at $7, that's $1,400. So we
Mm-hmm.
know the burn through is, yeah, half of that money is gone by the time the trucker delivers that load. Half of the
Yep.
money of that load. So when
Plus
you
the
can start,
tolls, So if I would have gotten it for the 32, I would have gotten the $200 with the tolls on that deal.
mm-hmm. Well, and this is where the issue lies in the whole. I think where the owner operators get frustrated with the marketplace, people get frustrated with brokers. You can take brokers out of the equations. Do you think that shippers, because shippers, unless you're on a contract basis, then it's a little different story. But as in the spot market, you're having to fight for your life on a day-to-day basis, so to speak, because you need those times where you have a home run load, because you know there's going to be loads where sometimes you have no choice but to take something a little bit less. Because when you have a massive breakdown and you're down for a week and you have a $10,000 repair, well, if you're only taking loads that barely cover your cost, how are you building any reserves? That's what shuts down carriers, right?
Oh, yeah. That's what's shutting down trucks right now.
And that's why I want to, yeah, exactly. That's why I want to share. I think I'll touch on, I had a little thing I was going to tell you about perspective on the sales side of things. But what I was interested in is I've been watching, remember, I think you and I have kind of mentioned this. Sometimes it's the question of, running your own business versus being an employee. Being an employee is obviously much easier. You have the crap to deal with sometimes. But from a financial standpoint, right, it's, like if you went and work for a company that says, I'm going to pay you per so many cents per mile, plus I'll give you benefits, plus I'll give you a pension. So you think, hey, great. But put it in perspective, what you guys are doing as owner operators, where you get to choose your own freight. That's why I was encouraging. There's two sites. I was thinking about your situation, and I'm always looking at my own situation as well. Is if you were to share your screen and put on that national carrier, I can here, I can drop the link for you. Hang on one second.
And let me address Donnie's comment real quick. You pretty much try to get what you can but when I let the email customer, I'll get back with you, I fully expect not to hear back. Sometimes it happens. I have lost a broker contact because I was still looking while they were emailing back, and I booked something else, and then the broker came back and said, "All right, I've got that load for you." Well, I've already booked it, and they got mad. And
well, but what I do in those situations is I say, will you hold your truck?
Yeah.
Like I know we didn't get into it. Like I could have we were doing a mock thing, so I didn't get into it. Like I could have said, yeah, okay, hey, the place, we need that 24-hour appointment. When you arrive, you have to call this. Like yesterday, I had an example. I have a shipment in the States to pick up, and I was waiting for some information. So I reached out to the shipper because my customer hadn't provided it. It says they were buying some stuff from a supplier in the States. And so when I reached out to them, they gave me a whole page long procedures, right, that you have to follow at this facility. So they have that, and some carriers like that, and some carriers, oh, that's too many steps for me, I'm out, right? They don't like that idea. And
absolutely, Donnie, that's the key. Is professionalism goes both ways. A lot of these drivers complain about brokers. They're probably not a joy to talk to themselves.
So what's going on, Steve?
Not much. CDN has gotten quiet all of a sudden.
Yeah, sorry, I'm here. I'm looking up. I sent you the link for the one I want. The reason I want to show this here, I do have a specific purpose. Don't worry, it's coming. It's coming.
So, if I understand, I kind of came in late here. So, if I understand the conversation, though, there's been some comments made about being greedy. help bring me some context to that, Steve.
Okay.
Well, I'm just wondering, like, so in the spot market, I mean, we almost have to, like CDN was saying right when I came in, we almost have to go for the gusto, so that we hit a home run or two in our running schedule, because we're going to end up with some loads that just don't produce a profit, and you gotta run those averages.
Right.
And so when we're looking at this idea of greed, aren't we really, like, we have to look into our own heart about whether we're being greedy or not, right? I don't think you can just say, just because you're asking, if the lane pays $3,200 and you're asking for 38, is that greedy? Or is that just trying to find the load that the broker's willing to pay an additional fee cost on, because he has to move that? Like, that, to me, it's a fishing expedition to find the gem, not necessarily a motive to be greedy.
Well, I'll
Because
give you.
I think that's a self-filtering thing, right? If you find yourself, and I did this at Landstar, if you find yourself sitting for 2 days because you can't find the load, especially if it's a good market, you're probably asking for too much money. So
Well,
it just depends.
I think part of it is shippers don't always pay attention to it, but the big part of it as a broker, some brokers are just quick. They get a load and they just throw it on the load board. Then they don't always do the research on the math. Well, one of the things that I do is to help me judge a little bit where the rate is. Like, you've talked about some of the different ways I use time. I use rate per mile. I look at a few different factors in there, and I look at load histories if I have any history there, because sometimes some loads, depending on what their requirements are, rate per mile does not do justice to the load. So the point is that as a broker, what I'll use the load board for is, like, I have a load right now. I got a customer that wants, it's a partial coming out of Miami, Florida. So if there's I got a flatbed partial coming out of Miami, Florida. It's 14 feet going into Canada, into BC, but there's just no trucks there, and they're bugging me. Can we pick up? When can you pick up? And they're at the point now where they're like, yeah, we can load it into a van. So I'm working on all options, and I'll be jumping off, to focus on that here shortly. But the point is you have to look at it as a broker and know, okay, when I look at this load, this lane, I see there's 2 trucks, or if I see there's 100 trucks. Like, I have a lane, if I posted it, my phones would light up. Like, I know which lanes. Right. When I post a load, I can't keep up. I can delete it and I'll still get residual calls for 10 more minutes, right? So you kind of have to know the lanes a little bit, like where it's going to and from, and then you put all that into perspective. Because I had a shipment just recently where someone says, oh, well, these other guys just give me a quote, and I'm like, well, my experience is that this place, we need to do this, and here. And I said, did your brokers take that into consideration? Did they talk about the value of what you're shipping? Did they talk about the cargo insurance? Those are all those little details, because nothing's a problem until it's a problem. But
right,
like, so even though you say, okay, I got $100,000 cargo insurance, 150, like most flatbed truckers have 150,000. Just because you got that 150,000, if you put a valve on your truck that's worth 120,000, and then something happens to your truck, or that truck gets rolled and the thing is destroyed, even though it's a big steel valve or something like that, is it 100% covered, or is it $2 a pound?
Right.
Who knows that? You have to read each policy to understand that. And so those are the questions that you have to ask, right? Like, so sometimes that's a selling point, right? That's a selling point of how to either increase your rates with shippers. So there's so many factors involved, in moving freight. But the problem is that the spot market is, like I said, how much freight moves without being on the spot market? A lot. But the point is that when you're on the spot market, you're constantly building new relationships, new carriers, new carrier packets, and so forth. That's the reality of being on the spot market.
Big Rick Seo's got it right, and this is something that he's been teaching on his channel quite a while, and Jeff taught that as well on the Schneider program. The problem with trying to hit a home run in every load is you often strike out. I prefer hitting a base hit. 4 base hits equals a home run. And so, like when you go to Jose's comment here, 3,600 from Orlando to Fountain Valley, California. Now, if you absolutely had to go to California because of business or because there's freight out there that you need to get to, then you would do a 2 or 3 step to get to California to maximize, not just take one shot from Florida. But that load, only the desperate or the people that are paying per mile, small carriers or even large carriers that get bigger fuel discounts are going to take that load. Or, you know, that might go on the rail at some point. But you know, try not to put your, and Jose lives in Florida, so I understand that he has no choice but to deal with the Florida market. But if I'm zigzagging all over the country, that's a load I would not take because it just wouldn't be profitable. Whereas if I had to go to California from Florida, I would try to get some extra time so I could do some what Big Rig CEO calls.
Well, I would say, Steve, like this, what Jose is saying there, when you look at a lane and you say this lane's terrible, yes, the rate, what you're expecting is not good. But I would always think if you're at home and you're thinking, okay, I got to start trucking. So you open up the load boards and you're seeing the rates. You're like, oh man, the rates dropped in the last 2 days. Okay, so I know I'm gonna have to do some work here, but let me just have a quick glance. So my goal is I'd like to go to Texas today. And then from Texas, I was hoping to come back home, but maybe I can go here. Like, how long were you saying? Well, I can only go up for 1 week because I got to be home for an appointment or whatever. My truck's due for an inspection or something. Whatever you're going to do. If I'm, hey, no, I want to go out. I'm willing to go out for 2 weeks, no problems, or 1 week, or whatever you're planning to do. But I think taking the minute to say, where am I going? What can I get back? What does that look like without negotiating? Just to, based on what you're seeing on the load boards, right? If you say you took 4 days off and you come back and you're like, oh yeah, boy, I was getting $3 last week and I see the rate dropped to 250 or whatever it was, and you're like 50 cents a mile less. Well, where can I make that up? And then if you're seeing that, okay, this lane's not good, then eventually it will get to the point where you're saying, well, look, the rates dropped here, so I have to raise it on this end because normally this has been the outbound market and they were paying better, but it's dropped. So unfortunately, that's just the reality of the spot market and the supply demand.
Oh yeah, I mean, you know, one of my common lanes that I run for myself is from Springfield to Columbus, Ohio. And normally I would ask for, you know, $2,000 and I'd be lucky to get 18. Now I won't go there for less than 22 because the load ratios coming out of Ohio are pretty horrible right now. So so now I'm like, well, if I can't get 22, I'm not going to do that Ohio. I'm going to do, something else that's going to pay better. Knowing the market, knowing what you're willing and not willing to do, and Big Rig CEO is absolutely right. 4 base hits equals a home run. And
that's true, Steve. Absolutely true. And it's always better to keep your truck moving so that you're getting something and trying to move it to a better market, right? So if you're in a market but you still need to challenge the rate that they're offering, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that.
Where and CDN brought up the perfect scenario. So you were talking about, well, I got to get home so that I got to do this or I got to, I got to go to this specific place for this reason. In my opinion, that's a recipe for disaster. So I did that due to personal needs with the family in April and May. And well, the latter part of March, April, and the very beginning of May. And then I came home for a week in May, and then I went back out. And I ran the truck for profit, not to go to a particular place, but to run it for a profit. And my revenue went up on the same number of days ran. My revenue went up by almost 40% by running lanes based on where the load board led me instead of running where I needed to go.
Oh, absolutely. If you pick the highest rate on the load board, every single posted rate, every single location, you're going to make money. That's the thing. Even if you go into a dead area like New Mexico, pick the highest paying load in Mexico, go. Pick the highest load going to Washington, go. Pick the highest paying load from Washington to Ohio, go. You'll make money. The people that consistently make money, especially the ones that I dispatch, are the ones that are willing to do anything, anytime, anywhere, multiple stops, New York City, they don't care. Those are the people that are still making it. And so my job at that point is to make sure that I can keep, them out of high fuel areas unless the load's paying, or keep them out of a dead area unless I have a contact there that can get me out. That's what it is. And so if I've had people call and say, hey, I'm interested in your dispatch. I don't do this. I don't do this. I don't do this. I won't do this. And I only want this many miles per day. I want this. I'm like, I don't think I can help you, because you put so many limitations on yourself that if it comes time to make the money, and these are the people that are starting to drop off because their trucks are going down.
Well, I was going to say, so Sandman, I think you made a great point. So to get on the spot market and chase the load board money can be done 100%. But the flip side of that is you're not building any solid relationships.
Absolutely. That's the bad part.
Like, okay, so right. So meaning, like, have you established yourself as the carrier known? If you're only one truck and you're just chasing around the marketplace, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you have more than one truck, like I have loads I text the owner and I say, I got 3 more loads for you. He just books it. He just says, yep, no problem, Rob. Because I don't have to go in the load boards. It's special. It's flatbed freight, but where it's going to, he's approved. He's one of the few carriers approved in that area. So it's a real specialty thing there. And he doesn't go outside that. He doesn't, if I called him to do a load someplace else across Canada, he can't help me. That's not his lanes. So there, you have to make that decision to distinguish yourself. Are you trying to, like, are you going to build your website where you have your website? If I visit your trucking company's website and it says service area serviced, does it show everywhere? Does it show I focus on the western quarter, the east, or whatever the case is? There's no right or wrong. I'm just saying that there's pros and cons to both, right? The pros that if you the whole reason that a lot of guys will get their own truck or get their own authority is so that they have their own equipment. Number one, right? That's the starting point, that they get to choose their own equipment. Then if you're an owner operator, especially if you're self-dispatched, that's perfect, because guess what? The difference between what the driver has, the actual miles that you're sitting in the seat compared to a broker who's working from home or whatever, completely different. But the flip side of that is, if you decide to take 3 days off and you need 3 days off, you just shut your truck off, take your truck off the load boards. No, you might get a few emails from some of the brokers you work with. Hey, are you available? But you can put it on out of office saying, currently away from the office for 2 days. We'll get back to you or something. Whereas a broker, if you have customers, you got to keep finding trucks, right? Because if you turn away the customer saying, well, I'm not really working today. Well, if that customer has a load to move, guess what? And if they relied on you up to that point and they thought, yeah, I'll rely on Rob, and all of a sudden I started being wishy-washy, I'll take some loads, some ones I won't, guess what? They're going to find other partners to help them provide their freight coverage. Like, I have customers where I'm their dedicated person, so they rely on me. They expect me to be available.
No, you're absolutely.
One more thing on the zigzag, anytime, anywhere approach with no relationships. The thing that the reason why I don't do that for the most part, as much as I can with the drivers and myself, is that it definitely increases the odds of bad things happening. Knowing your customer base, knowing your customers, knowing your broker and how they're going to handle the tension, everything, that is key for less stress. Whereas, I constantly see on Facebook all these guys that have all these issues because they're going for the highest money. They don't have any relationships with brokers. They had no idea that this broker did this. They had no idea that this broker did that. They're just go, go, go. And that's the downside of that. So, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Cascade. I just want to get
you're good. But I mean, there is an importance to build I completely agree with you, CD, and we do need to build relationships. I hauled my first direct customer load coming back home. They've got 2 loads a month that come out of a market, come back to the house. There's 2 times that I can get back home every month, right? I just have to be able to place myself in the market that he needs me to pick that product up in, right? So,
and you can, but hey, that's as because you know that he's not a high volume supplier, shipper, and
right,
you've built some relationships. Because otherwise, what will happen is if he calls you, hey, I got a load this week, and you're like, oh, I can't do it till next week because I left the house already or something, and then he's gonna say, oh shoot, I'm gonna have to go with someone else. But if you could, as you meet with them, talk to them, constantly touching points, you could say, hey, when do you know? Like, how many days in advance do you know? Then you can say, well, because I'm always bebopping around, but I'll be here for you. If you can give me a week's notice, I'll arrange my loads to be here for you. Or if you're a little bit flexible, when you call me, if you're willing to sit on it for a few days, as soon as you call me, I just have to get back from wherever I am, and I'll come and grab that load, right?
exactly, exactly. And that's what this one happens to be. It has incredible flexibility on the shipping side and on the receiving side. And I was like, hey, when you got a truckload sitting there, call me up. And like even this one, we talked, and it was every bit of a week and a half before I made it to pickup, right? Because of where I was going, and then I couldn't get to where he needed me to be, so I went somewhere else, and then I had to come back down. So this one has that kind of flexibility. A lot of dry van freight doesn't have that kind of flexibility. You're dealing with a lot of box shippers. They're sending out 10 trucks a day, and then while I was running that load, a broker that I've worked with half a dozen times called me up, and we've had that conversation about lead time. I'm like, dude, if you can give me some lead time, I can put myself in the lane you need me to be in. Well, he called me up and he says, hey, I got 4 loads moving in July, mid-July. Would you be interested in these? Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll work on building these relationships and getting that lead time. And he's been working on that side of it, and we're working together, right?
Sam, man, are you okay? It seems like very shaky where you're at. Is there earthquakes going on?
Yeah,
you there's got a little too much caffeine in you. Too much caffeine, Sam, man. Yeah. Did you drink one of the frappuccinos?
I had a green tea frappuccino, but not from Starbucks.
You can't hang with the dean. You can't hang with him.
I won't support Starbucks. That's just me, though.
That's funny. He's like,
why, you're from there. You're from there.
He's like shaking the camera. Like, I'm doing just fine. I'm doing just fine.
So you guys, having the 3 of you on here is perfect, because like I was telling Steve, I'm always watching that idea, that concept of going back to a company where you get a benefits and a pension and all this good stuff has some benefits. But at the flip side of it, I sent you 2 links, Steve, and I was looking. There's 2 different companies there advertising, from $80,000 to $103,000 a year company driver pay at something like 63 cents a mile or 53 cents. So I just did the math at 103,000 divided by 0.63. So you got to drive 163,492 miles a year.
Good
now,
luck.
as a driver, are you going to be doing that 52 weeks a year? You're not. You're going to be probably, let's say you did 42 weeks of the year. Okay.
And that's too many, but yeah.
So 42 weeks, that's 3,892 per week. So divide that by 4. No, yeah, that's 52 weeks. So divide that by 5. So you're going to burn 778 miles per day.
You know what? Some guys are boasting those numbers, and they're doing it because they're unplugging their ELD or they're a super solo, like a husband and wife team or something. But
hey, Rob.
Hey, Jeff.
Hey, got another one coming.
Oh, there you go.
It will get better, right? It's getting better.
What's getting better? What is that?
A gift.
Gift?
It's getting better. Yeah. To try to lower the echo.
Oh.
Yeah.
No, your audio has improved. So I think that microphone is a big part of it too.
Well, I think you ought to send me yours.
I'm literally using like a $40.
The same one. You're using the same one. That's what you're using.
Yeah.
You see how I'm treated? Do you see this? You see this, guys?
At least you're not shaking.
But I was going to say, so back to that.
Wait a minute.
To the whole.
Here we go. Wait. All right, so I got to tell you all something. When we book freight, it's like this. Now he's going to get worse. He's in the truck. He's in the car.
There you go.
Trying to figure.
He's going to Starbucks, guys. He's going to Starbucks.
Cody asked earlier, do you think rates will come up? I've seen rates picking up in certain areas and then go down in others. So it just depends. So, Cody, my method is I look at load ratios on whatever load board that you're on and look at your load ratios. And the ones that have the higher volumes, those are the ones that are starting to pay a little bit more. The ones that are like in the 3-digit numbers, you want to kind of avoid those places because they're still trying to keep rates down a little bit. So, go ahead, Jeff.
My philosophy on rates is when this bloodbath is over, because there's going to be a lot of people going out of business. And as it stays like it is in a freight supply stays down a little bit, more and more trucks and trailers will come on the market. And those individuals that know their numbers, know how to run their company and get through it, just like COVID, right? Say, man, you were there. Dean ran through it with that brand new truck and trailer.
Yep.
We taught them how to run to get through it. And when you come out the other side, the rates are going to soar again. It's just, that's the way it is.
Well, I was going to say that's where the whole thing comes down to. I think what Steve alluded to is I think maybe when you look at the life cycle, like if you're a company driver, use that time to hone the craft, master your skills as a driver, learn that inside out, and then build off of that. Start to learn all the safety requirements, and then paying attention when your truck breaks down, what broke down. Find out if you can find out how much did it cost to repair that part that went down. Just instead of just writing a work order saying engine light came on, investigate that. Take the time to actually study it, right? So that if your goal is to get your own truck at some point, you can use the time when you're in the infant stages of your career learning to hone that craft and understand it. So then as you progress, ideally, if you can, taking a minute, if you can, after being a CDL driver for a few years, if you can get into the dispatch side for 6 months, a year, just to gain some backside, and then you go back out and you go out, because if you can hone these skills, because again, when you get to that level where you're an owner operator or you got your own authority, one of the keys of being consistent to a degree, because I think at the beginning, if you don't know the market and you've been a driver, running around to different places isn't a bad thing at the beginning, chasing that money. The idea is just to expose yourself to the market, because if you're saying, yeah, I'm just going to run in my little area, I live in Illinois, I'm just going to run the 3 states around Illinois and that's it. But if you didn't know that, hey, if I went down to Texas and then I went from Texas to maybe South Carolina and then South Carolina up, there's actually some really good money there. You don't know that until you've looked at that. But then once you've kind of done the runaround and been exposed to places, having that consistency where it helps. One, when you get a load on the spot market, you know which truck stops you can go to. You know where you're going to fill up. You're going to know, you likely will have seen that shipper, so you're kind of aware of the procedures of what you're getting into, because every load takes on its, and I'm sure each of you will tell you that, we'll all agree, when you take a load on, you think everything's going to go great, but it can sure take on a life of itself, where things go wrong. You go and all of a sudden you're going to they're redirecting you to different warehouses, or they've loaded the wrong product and they want you to go back, and yet that's where all this happens, right? You can have all the best blade plans, you have a great broker, but sometimes it can be the shipper's internal communication where you go there, they load you, and 5 minutes you leave, and all of a sudden you get this message, we loaded the wrong product, you got to go back. And you're like, well, if I go back and unload, I'm going to miss my times. I have a reload I'm supposed to do, and they can spiral out of control quickly. So sometimes when you think about I'll quickly stop you, but the 3 things about sales that we're always doing, whether you are a salesperson, is number 1 is awareness. Well, how do you build awareness of your brand, of your business, of your service, if you're not being consistently available to people, right? If they see you once and they don't see you again, you got to build awareness, right? And that's where, like, Jeff, like, you could have all your guys, like, you got a billboard, you could make a nice big sign, so that right now when you think of, we know Knight, well, because they have big, huge, they use their trailers. So you could build awareness by putting your logos on the trailers. Jeff could build a map where all the owner operators lived. He used as a selling point, hey, I got drivers in these areas that eventually could help build awareness, because when a broker visits his website and says service area, he can show that maybe he has no drivers in California, so he doesn't go to California. But if he has a driver in California, he can, say, I don't service, unfortunately, we just don't service California. That's good. You know your lanes, you know what you're doing. Then once you have awareness, through that awareness builds consideration, right? People don't just buy. Like, you don't just buy. Like, are you guys saying, okay, I'm with Verizon phones today. Well, tomorrow someplace else is cheaper, so I'm going to flip my contract. Well, you were just in a 3-year. Like, it doesn't. You don't just make your purchase immediate. So it's awareness, consideration, then purchase. But to get through those 3 stages, how many times do they have to? You have to be in touch with those brokers. Like, when you call a broker that you don't know, hey, can you put me on your load list so that I can get your freight that you don't put on the boards? Who are you?
Yeah.
Right.
Whereas when you book one load with them, then you follow up with them. Hey, thanks for that load. You know what? That load was great. However, I just wanted to let you know that I didn't charge you, but that unloading actually took 3 hours or 2.5 hours. So I figure it was only half an hour. So, hey, but I'd be interested in that lane again because I quite liked it. It was great. Or whatever the issues are, saying, hey, just that low fault. And then a week later, you might touch base. If you think that that's a good broker and you think that they could be beneficial to your business, you have to give small touches, like give an email, like a little thing, something that's just showing that you're around and you're constantly building this relationship and trust with them. So then as they go on, that, you can say, hey, anytime you have freight in the Midwest and Missouri area, give me the call. I can be of help to you. Right. And so forth and so forth. So you have to do, like, how many times do you think you have to touch base with someone to get the option to even quote their freight or be considered as the broker or the shipper? It's probably in the 7 to 13 times before you get a chance to even, they'll say, hey, okay, why don't you start quoting me? You may have to do 7 to 13 previous interactions to get to that point where they're considering you.
Well, experience is a big part of it. So I did 6 years of 47 states. Nevada's the only state I haven't been in, because Nevada's for, sketchy people. I'm only giving Nevada trucking some crap. But anyways, no, they just never sent me there, even though we had loads that went to Reno. But because of the experience with that enabled me to make better decisions. But I still made a lot of mistakes. And so what I'm seeing taking people out now is that with the increase of fuel prices, now they're having to decide, do I put money towards the house or do I put money towards the truck? And so I'm here to tell you, I'm going to be a little bit doom and gloom here. If you were behind on your repairs, if you are playing catch up with repairs and maintenance, like you're not at the preventative maintenance stage, you're at the, oh crap, I hope this tire or I hope this hose lasts until the next run. If you're at that point, you're probably not going to make it, because these fuel prices are kind of keeping people from getting ahead. So if you're playing catch up now, this is where the high fuel makes a difference, right? So before you get into the owner operator game, know your costs, know your expenses, and know how and what you're willing to do to allocate your money. Because I know people that do the numbers, but yet they still go out because they're like, well, I'm putting off this repair. Next thing you know, they're sitting for a month. They've depleted their resources and it took them out. I mean, I got pretty lucky with my first truck because I did not do that.
I was going to say
numbers, So
go ahead.
So I got to get off here, but I want to touch on a couple things before I do. CDN, you brought up, you can make money running anywhere, right? But you don't build the relationships. And then we were also talking about, look, so if you don't know, so know your lanes. I've said this to Steve a bunch of times, even on the channel. Know your lanes. Then you know what the lane pays. And when they're offering 1,000 less than what the lane pays, you have some ability to communicate, hey, I run this all the time, this lane, and that's worked for me, right? Because there's certain lanes that I know, but running Willie, keep notes, understand what lanes pay. have that gives you some context of what markets are right or wrong for your equipment.
Well, I was going to say,
right?
If you're a company driver right now,
Yeah.
and if you're not like, I have to be home because of whatever, if you're able to run kind of open and they have freight all over the place, take the freight everywhere, because guess what? As you go to a city you've never been to before, it's pretty easy to drive by a warehouse, and if you see a lineup of orange trailers, what does that tell you? They have a contract at that place, but there's a lot of freight there because there's a lot of docks. Now,
Right.
so you got to look at all these things. When you see a whole bunch of night trailers there, oh, they must have a contract there. So that's contract freight typically, right? Then as you see how you can see how many warehousing facilities there are in that town that you drove through, or if you're like, oh, this place doesn't seem to have a lot. They don't really have any truck parking. Maybe this isn't the greatest spot for, like, I don't know how much I'm getting. I'm just getting paid per mile, but percent or cents per mile. But at least it gives you an idea. You can talk to other drivers and so forth and so forth. But yeah, at some point in your career, you have to explore, but then eventually you gotta narrow your focus.
You want to narrow it in and find your niche, right? And then stick in your lanes because shippers, knowing shippers and receivers is huge.
I want to go one step further though. Is the ability that's important is recognizing how to deal with any market. That's the thing, because sometimes, like, for example, Jeff and I saw this at Schneider. We'd have guys call us, hey man, I've been running the Pacific Northwest, and I've been running this Frito-Lay stuff and doing this for a couple of years. And all of a sudden Frito-Lay is like, yeah, we don't want you anymore. And now they're like scrambling and they're suffering because they're struggling because they don't know, they didn't utilize the skills to, like, you can put Jeff or I or Steve Berger in the Texas market, we can make it work. You put us in the Northeast, we can make it work. Now, Jeff utilized the Michigan market. I used to utilize the Midwest. But the ability, like, for example, seeing a lane and utilizing it, okay, why does it pay so low? Why does it pay so high? Why is it doing this? Why, and how do I adapt to that? So the ability to take any section of the country and make it work, to me, is just as important than just finding what works and then sticking to it. I mean, that's great for consistency, but what if that suddenly disappears? Like, for example, Ohio, Illinois, that used to be, no matter what, you can book something to Ohio, Illinois, you're going to find something good coming out. Now, not so much. So the ability to be able to do that in different areas, instead of asking the what's, ask the whys and the hows.
Well, I think it comes down to planning. This industry, you can wait, like, this industry is capable in the trucking world where you can just wake up, put your, post your truck, get a load, make money, and just bounce from load to load and come home and so forth. You can do that. That works perfectly good for some people, but where the consistency, like Steve, I think you kind of you have that Bible of your book. You have every repair ever done to your truck. And I could be wrong, but I have a local mechanic in my town that I use.
It's that thick.
Can't see it.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go.
That's
and so,
everything that's
CDN.
This truck since 101, right there.
With Steve's repair book there, right? That's what a lot of guys don't understand. That truck for owner operator is your lifeline. That should be the first thing you should be worried about if you want to stay in business, is keeping that thing on the road and maintained. And if you're slacking on maintenance, you're going to go out of business.
Well, I was going to say,
you're putting yourself out of business.
I have a local shop that I started using about a year and a half, 2 years ago now. And one thing that this guy, like, he's a small operator, but he said to me, he says, if you come to me, because I came to him with some bigger repairs for my personal vehicles and my daughter's vehicle, and he says, yeah, if you started coming to me, which I am now, I might pay a smidge more for my oil changes, but by me going to him consistently, know what he's doing, because he sees I'm coming all the time. I did the last oil change, I go to the next one, know what he's doing? Because he sees that same vehicle every 3 or 4, 5, 6 months, whatever the time period you're putting it in. He's not just changing the oil like if you go to a lube shop and this in and out. He's actually paying attention. He might say, hey, I see this valve is leaking here. We should maybe address that, because if you don't, it's going to turn it from I could fix it now for $200. If you wait a year, it's going to be $1,500.
And not only that, he's up underneath the truck, so he sees it.
Right.
most drivers aren't getting on a creeper and going with their truck, right?
80% of this, 80 to 90% of this is all done by one shop here in Springfield.
Right. And so because you go there consistently, they've seen that truck, and they're not gonna play games with you. When you go to some truck stop in some state that you've never been to before, they're gonna do okay, but they could burn you. They just do the basics. Whereas if you go to that same place, they're gonna say they see you as a business person. They see that you're consistent. They know that you're coming there. They're not going to burn you. They're going to try to look out for you. They're going to have your back to a degree, right?
They see my truck, and they're like, yeah.
yeah. That's why it's the color green, the color of money, because I know that Steve's going to pay him.
But no, you're absolutely right. So,
yeah.
But that's what we're seeing people go out of business for is they didn't save for the rainy day, and the high fuel is keeping them from putting more money into their maintenance fund. And so once it's depleted, and like, look, you can have, a truck take out your hood at the truck stop. That's no fault of your own. But, what if that hood doesn't exist? What if they got to be special made? What if the parts on Galactic back order that, the radiator and all that? And so what people are finding is that not only do they not have the money for the repair, but they don't have the money for the downtime as well.
That's where the planning comes in. Back to the planning concept. When you own your own truck, you got to take the time, and just like a broker has to take the time to plan. Meaning, if you're a broker or carrier, you got to sit down and say, okay, well, what am I going to spend money on for advertising? How much money am I going to spend per year? Because you could have a plan, but if you're sitting there saying, well, I'd like to do the following year, maybe do some customer appreciation thing that's going to cost a few $1,000, but you're like, well, I know last year I delayed. I know I'm going to need 6 new tires. Well, that's a big chunk of cash right there. And I'm probably going to need something else. And you're like, yeah, this year alone, without any unexpected, if you know your truck, because you've been, like I've always said before, when you have one truck, you guys probably know every little nook and cranny about it. If you started owning 5, 6, 7 trucks, you're losing that. You're relying on the drivers to keep up for you to a degree. You can only do so much because you're not driving it on a daily. But the point is, you can kind of estimate when you have one truck and you're the sole driver, you can kind of figure out like, yeah, I shouldn't need tires this year. Good. So that's out of the question. But you do need to build up for the next time you need tires or the next thing. So, but you got to keep planning that. It's hard. It's hard because when you have the low rates, it's hard to set money aside for all those different funds: vacation fund, pension fund, maintenance fund, marketing fund. Right? It's hard to set all that money aside and then plus pay yourself and pay your bills.
And if you're running 120 to 150,000 miles a year, you better start looking at money set back for equipment replacement too.
Right.
Because it mathematically, old and new trucks are like side by side. Sometimes it's cheaper to run a newer truck. I mean, we've had that discussion before, and that's the area that I'm in. My truck is old, so there's no way I'm putting 120, 150,000 miles on it. I wouldn't have faith in it. I would have to completely change my system, to deal with that.
Well, there's another thing too, Snorelord, when you talk about that, we've known some people with older trucks, and they take a heavy load out to the West Coast, let's say up to Washington from the Midwest. That's a no-go. Because one, when you hit those mountains, and if you got 45,000 in a box, you're going to put a lot of strain on that old motor, and that's when it's going to break. Right? So where if you don't do that, you could buy yourself 3, 4 months, 6 months, a year or so on flat ground where it's not going to affect that truck as much because you're not putting it under that kind of stress.
Yep. No, I agree.
So that's why I wouldn't take an old truck out that way. I just wouldn't.
Well, and I think that's the important part is, if each person, each company, each owner operator, whether you're an owner operator or you have your own authority, but if you're just a small carrier, you do need to take a minute and say, well, that was a crappy load. What's your KPIs, your key performance indicators for your business that matter to you? So if you took your last 10 loads and you say list on the left, make a list. So across the left, you say, okay, rate per mile. Then you say loading time, unloading time, fuel cost, accessibility for truck stops in the lane. And then you took your last 10 loads and you write down, okay, I got paid 1,500, I got 1,000, I got 2,000, I got, you know, you write that down and then start put rankings to evaluate what was a good load. You know, if you put all those together, you know, that's, you have to, there's no right or wrong answer, as long as you're taking a minute to evaluate and decide and decipher what is good, what is bad, and why it's good or bad for you. Because what Steve may perceive as, oh, that was a terrible load, the next guy might think that was great. Right? It doesn't really matter. It's just what you believe to be.
Yep. Let me address this comment. My boss Bella says that you all should write a trucking business manual with all this information. Just a suggestion. You know, the information is out there. It's whether people are willing to listen to it or not. Wow, you got some hats there, Jeff.
Yeah.
There's a scene in Peaky Blinders where the guy just kind of loses it because no one's listening to him. I've posted on my community page, and I sent that to Eric because he's complaining about the same thing. And look, the information is out there. And no one, let me rephrase that. There are a lot of people that hear the words, but don't put them into action. And that's so what it comes down to. And I get why people may not want to see that, because they don't want to really kind of deep into it. They just want to buy a truck and make some money, thinking that it's a get rich thing, and it's not. It's all about mindset. You know, the ability to adapt and overcome. You know, you can do all the numbers you want, you can be spot on, but if you don't have the ability to adapt and overcome, then it's just wasted math.
Well, I would say tip number one, if you're an owner operator that is dealing with the brokers, if you're an owner operator where you have dispatchers, well, it's probably a little different. But if you deal with customers, brokers, anyone outside of your realm, tip number one, fix your voicemail. How many times do you see people, can't get you right now? Click. That's their voicemail and they're a business, right? Say your business name. Sound professional. Make yourself say and provide information like, you've reached so-and-so with such and such trucking company. Please either, if this is urgent, text me, or you're welcome to, you can email me and provide your email address, right? Do something like that. And if you're kind of one or two trucks, another cheap trick to make yourself seem bigger than you are, because that's part of the game. It's unfortunately, it is a game, but it's part of the game. It's no different than a small broker, small, you know, dispatch service. Like Steve, I shared with you some of the competition out there, what some of them are doing. Are they as big as they perceive on their websites? But their websites are polished and professional. But do they provide as good a service as what you do? I don't think so.
Right.
I truly don't. I think what you provide, you're actually looking better for, you know, than what these guys are promoting. But the point is, there's programs like Ring Central and Grasshopper. Those are VoIP phone systems. And Grasshopper, they have two. You pay a little bit more if you have the whole desktop. But if you just want the virtual, the app version of the VoIP system, it's pretty cheap, like $14 a month. And what does that do for you? Well, it takes your cell phone, you can create another number. So now you have a separate business phone number. And what happens is it allows you to create a queue system. So even if you have only one truck, you can say, you've reached Bob's Trucking. Press 1 for dispatch, press 2 for sales, press 3 for safety. They don't need to know that it actually all comes to you. But what it does, right, it takes away the stress. If you're driving, it goes to the queue. So if someone has a question about dispatch, you can say, you can have a voicemail for each. You can have it, if it goes, the nice thing about the queue is you can have it so when they press 1 for dispatch, if you don't want to miss a call, it will get forwarded to your voicemail, directly to your cell phone. And secondly, if you click on number 2 for sales, if you don't want the call missed and you want a person there and say you got a wife at home that's willing to take the call, it can go to their number and they can say, you've reached, hi, it's Mary with XY Trucking, because she sees that this is the business number. Oh, sorry, Steve is away. He's out of the office at the moment, but can I get your information and we'll get back to you within 24 hours. Right, or something like that. Or on the sales voicemail, you can just say, hi, you've reached the sales department for such and such trucking company. We're currently away from please leave your name and number and we will get back to you and make a commitment when you're going to get, what's your timeline, right? So it's just a way to control the flows of information so that you can promote yourself as bigger than what you are.
Right, so the system like we use, it's similar to those.
Yeah.
But you know, if they want to get hold of Steve, they can press 2.
Yep.
Right.
And it goes right to Steve, right? Because you just put as many phone numbers as you want in there for redirection.
Yeah. Well, you know, the email signature, you know, if anybody was like, just before I was dispatching, and even, yeah, before I was dispatching, I put in my signature driver and dispatcher. So the brokers would send me their list thinking that, you know, I was in charge of X many trucks. And now it's even more so. But just the signature, it's got the picture of my truck. I mean, you've seen my signature. And then I've got one for rig runners where it's got a picture, basically the picture that Jeff uses on the website right there, and signature basically saying, you know, what we do and all that, and make yourself look bigger than you are. You got to stand out from the people, like in the beginning of the video when CDN first came on, the people that will call up and say, how much? You know, you got to separate yourself from those people. But it's all about mindset. But at that rate, I'm going to end this video because I got to look for a couple of loads for a couple of trucks. So guys, thanks for coming on. Jeff, thank you for coming on. CDN, thank you for coming on. Your insight is always valuable.
Last point about just to close off, is on that VoIP system. The other benefit, I'm not sure if Jeff has this, but with the Grasshopper or the Ring Central system, it gives you an app on your phone, but it also gives you an app on your laptop. So when you're dispatching, like for me, I use it's through, in our Canadian side, TELUS, but it's hosted on Ring Central. I have a screen. So when I'm texting drivers, I'm not using my phone. I'm typing from a keyboard. So I'm not making mistakes. I can drop links. I can share files, and it's so much faster. And it's a whole nice system, faster than there, because it's just, you can copy and paste instructions. You know, it's just having that, being able to text from your desktop, laptop is fantastic.
I appreciate that. Thank you, CDN. All right, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on, and Jeff.
Yes.
I'm getting off of here. I got work to do. I'm sure you got work to do.
Me too. Yeah, I got to
payroll, and
I've already done that. I'm efficient, right? So that's done, and you got a notification, right? So I sent that to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's all done. It's Friday. That's all done.
It's Friday. So
I'm trying to get out of here early today.
Are you hitting the RV?
No, absolutely not. No.
Too expensive?
No, I got to go mow the field today and do some other stuff. And then I got to go over to the other property and check that out and see what's going on over there. I also have to go to the tractor dealership and pick up some parts and things like that. So it's a busy
full day.
Very full.
Jeff, I'm going to bid you off. Thanks for coming in.
And I'll hook up to the flatbed trailer, and hopefully I can get a TSC.
That'll work. I've been looking. There hasn't been much in my area.
There's one. It's a ways from you.
Yeah.
I've seen it today.
That's what they all. They're all like 50 miles. So
yeah, it's not worth it then.
But yeah. All right, Jeff.
All right.
Thanks for coming in. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Make sure you hit the thumbs up. I hope you enjoyed the information. And with that being said, strength for today, hope for tomorrow. Peace.